Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaoatman.com. Welcome to Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, a daily podcast devoted to spirituality and self-help. If you're new, I want to welcome you. If you're returning, welcome back. So today we have a special guest with us in the studio. We have Miss Jana Roemer, and she is working on a very creative project that she's really excited to talk to us about today. And her passion is with yoga and with astrology, which I'm really fascinated to hear more about this. So I can't wait to start talking to her about her experiences. So welcome today, Jana.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is really fun and exciting.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to hear more about your creative project, but before you start telling us about that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
I love this question. I think it's so funny because, we're such vast creatures and we got two sentences. Who are you? So I'm a Canadian mother of two boys. I just spent the last 7 years living in Venice Beach, California, which was incredible. And I'm far more complex than a sentence. How about that? I'm passionate about astrology, like you said. And really, really, what I love more than anything is actually the nature of the mind and how humans function and our mental health, but then also where that intersects with our spiritual well being. And so, to me, one can't be accessed without the other in its wholeness.
So, what sort of led you into more of your spiritual practice?
My spiritual practice, you know what? I wasn't raised in a religion. I was raised on an acreage outside of a really tiny town, and my mom had just the essence of spirituality. It was never that we went to church, but it also wasn't that God was never in the room. You know what I mean? And there was, I would say that my mom kind of led me from the very beginning to have um, trust that the universe is on my side. Although I'm not sure that that would be the words that she used. But if I look back over the course of my life, whether it was the way we gardened or the way we trusted, and that we were being taken care of, it was just part of the fabric of my being. So spirituality, I did actually go through a short phase in my late teen years and early 20s where I tried out atheism for a little while, where I was like, oh, maybe we die and it is just this black hole and that's the end of it. And I tried it out for a little while. I think I was mad at God for something. And then when I was I think 22 or 23 years old, two guys that I knew basically from kindergarten straight through to grade 12 died in a head-on car accident. And these two characters in my life, one was my brother's best friend and one was a friend. They touched a lot of people and they lived a really cool life. And so coming home for their funerals, it was in the biggest building in the town that I grew up in, and it was still overflowing. There were people in the mezzanine, and there wasn't enough space to hold the number of lives that these two people touched. And it definitely changed something in me. That was, if there was ever a time where God essentially said, "Hey, I'm ready for my little girl to come back," that was the moment. And yeah, I just have never, other than that short time, I can't imagine life without spirituality. And I think I didn't even believe it when I was trying to be all tough then either.
It's really interesting that you say that. And I have to also say sorry for the background noise. Apparently, my dog saw someone walking past our house. She just loves to like interject her little barks here and there. But I think it's funny that you mentioned that it was, the death of people that you knew, because I've heard so many people say that. My mentor, she actually opened up to her gifts because a close friend of hers died, and it was like that was the catalyst for her. And I think that there's a lot of people who experience that. And also interesting that you say you didn't really think that you believe that you're atheist, because I have that issue with my son too. He was like, I don't believe, and I don't want to believe. And there's still a part of me that's like, yeah, I don't believe you that you don't. But I have to let him come to that realization on his own. So that made me think of him when you said that. So it's interesting. So what's this project that you're working on that you're so excited about?
Yeah. So, have you ever heard of Yoga Nidra before? So not like yoga asana, like the poses that you do in a studio, but Yoga Nidra. Have you heard of that? You've not. Okay, most people haven't. So I want to start there and then I'll explain. Okay. So Yoga Nidra it's kind of like a meditation, but you do it laying down instead of seated. And it's completely different than a meditation, where in a meditation, we often say, you want to calm the undulations of the mind, or you want to, let the thoughts go. Where in Yoga Nidra, we're like, bring it all in. Like the whole of you is welcome. There's nothing that you could bring to the practice that isn't welcome. And there's something so liberating in that. Now, at the same time, the practice itself is such a sound technology when it's delivered properly, that instead of fighting the mind, we actually go right underneath the mind into the autonomic nervous system. And we get there through sensation. And so as we map the body in the beginning phase of the practice, what we're doing is sending a single signal through the felt sense of interoception, which is touch, like to touch yourself from the inside out. Through mapping the body, we're actually mapping gray matter in the brain, which naturally brings the hum of the busy mind into this centralized, coherent, peaceful place. And that's, to me, that's the entrance into the practice. And then once we get inside of the practice, there's all different things that you can do. So when I say inside, what we're doing is going from the conscious mind, eyes closed, the sensing, we call it the rotation of consciousness through the body, is such that the analytical mind goes to sleep and you watch your physical body fall asleep, but awareness remains. So now all of a sudden you're in a state that we typically don't visit otherwise. And once we're in that state, then it's a dialogue with the subconscious mind, your chemical electrical systems, and we can get into some of those limiting beliefs or those unconscious or subconscious urges or our trigger points in life. And we have the ability, once we're underneath the analytical mind, to really repattern the way that electricity is being conducted through your body, which then signals the chemical reactions, which then, like the cascade of that. And so I kind of became obsessed with Yoga Nidra when I started to recognize that, first of all, as a mom, I was more rested. What new mom isn't tired? And for me, I was a daily meditator for almost a decade when I had my first son. And I would go sit, I was so determined. I'm like, I'm still going to meditate. And I'd sit to meditate and I'd just be like falling asleep in my seat. I'm like, I don't think this is helping me. And I had done Yoga Nidra before and it came back around. And I just thought, if I can take 20 to 30 minutes in my afternoon, it was when he was really little and he was having 2 naps. If I can take one of those naps for me and do this practice, then I'm still getting something to reconnect with myself. And I'm still, and also I'm recovering some of my lost sleep. So that's where the love for Yoga Nidra really began for me. And then I started to notice that things in my life that were typically triggering me stopped being so triggering. And that was huge. So it was, there was double up. And then I very naturally gravitated towards astrology. Nobody ever said this would be cool, this would be a good idea. In fact, it was the opposite. People are like, astrology? What would you ever do with that? Or I'd be talking about I got fired from a yoga studio in Venice for talking about astrology. Like I would say, oh, it's a new moon today. And the owner of the studio, bless his heart, I still love the studio. I do not take offense to it. I understand why he did it. It's like filled with surfers, they don't care about the moon, sure, whatever. They probably would today because it's changed since those years ago. But anyway, yeah, rather than it being something that I thought would be beneficial for me to study, I actually got more feedback that people wouldn't take me seriously anymore. And so but I couldn't help it. I was so interested in it. Astrology has explained so much for me because it is just an extension of our natural world, our psyche, our imagination, our emotions. It to me, yeah, I couldn't stop my interest in astrology if I tried. And what I started noticing is that when I used to, well, I still do, but I used to have an actual blog. Now it's more like Instagram. I used to blog about the new and full moons. And I noticed that after my yoga nidra practice, my journaling would be in direct reflection of what was going on in the astrology when I would look into the astrology later on. And I thought, wow, this practice is connecting me to these cosmic rhythms.
That
And
was
what
just
if I,
occurring for you naturally
yeah,
by doing the yoga practice. Wow, that's very interesting.
yeah. And so then I thought, well, when I did my training for Yoga Nidra, I hadn't really thought of it all the way, but my practicum script was Yoga Nidra to attune to the moon. That's like what I handed in to my teacher. And yeah, and I started to realize that if I put them together, so when I was teaching public classes, I would take the themes of the astrology and I'd weave them into the practice. And there were some people at the studio. There's this one woman who is so consistent. She was there every class. Every teacher wants some good students, and she was just amazing. She really helped me. And she would come to me after class and be like, you should be live streaming these, or you should be recording these and sending them out to the world. I think lots of people would benefit. And people weren't streaming the same way as they are now then. And I thought, that's crazy. Like, who would listen? But I did end up recording it, and I just put it up on my website, and I couldn't believe it. Like 300 people bought the recording. And I was like, what? Who are these people? And why are you interested in this? And so that just turned in, and that's how it began. And the first year I did it, I ended up getting really busy with life, and I didn't understand that this is what I was meant to be doing yet. And I think I did 4, and then I let it slip. And then the next year I started again. And so now I've been consistent for almost 4 years. It's about 3.5 years. I've been consistently creating these every sun season, a new one comes out. And each year now is themed off what Jupiter is doing, because Jupiter as a planet takes 1 year to circle the zodiac. And the theme of Jupiter will often help us to understand how we can expand into more of who we are, or a learning point, or something that's important for us to learn right now as a collective. And so this last year, Jupiter was in Capricorn. And what I did is I started to study medical astrology and how astrology lives in our bodies. And I mixed it with teachings from Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen in the Body Mind Centering Institute, where I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work, but she's ridiculous. Her understanding of interoception and how the body moves and feels. She's asking like when you do something with Bonnie, let's say she's bringing you into your breath, she'll lead you to the place where your lungs become aware of themselves. So you're not thinking from your brain, but like the lungs become aware of themselves. And so I started I'm breaking the rules of yoga, like traditional yoga nidra, because I'm taking this deep embodiment work that Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen has outlined. I'm mixing it with medical astrology of what's going on in the body and coming up with these practices. So over the last year, we've been through the immune system, and we've been through the skeletal system and the cardiovascular system and the digestive system and the nervous system, and just into the kidneys and the bladder. And it's really been quite a fun creative process. And I kind of giggled. It wasn't really a time of giggling, but right before COVID hit was Pisces season. And Pisces season governs the immune system. And so right before COVID hit, I put out this Astro Nidra for Pisces season that was all about embodying the immune system.
Almost like you were preparing people for what was about to come.
Exactly. So that's where it becomes so relevant now all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Do you find that happening a lot? Like that what you end up creating courses for coincides with what is happening or getting ready to happen in the world.
100%. I started calling 2020 astrology's redemption year because I've never seen such strong parallels between what's happening or what's written in the stars and what's actually happening in the world. From everything from the pandemic to Black Lives Matter to the election, and like, you look at even the fires, everything, it was like boom, boom, the astrology, there it is. What the heck? How could this be mapped out so clearly? And why are people not paying attention?
What is coming up? Are we going to survive 2021? Because some of us have had a rough year.
Yeah. Well, the crew of people that have been following Attuned to the Moon, which is my platform, the people that I've been following have time and time again just said thank you so much. Like all along the way, if people sign up for one course, they tend to sign up for many, many, and I keep them really, really affordable because I'm of the belief that spirituality should be accessible, astrology should be accessible, these practices should be accessible. And I remember one of the courses that I ran this summer, $55 for a month intensive, and everybody was like, you could charge $550 for this. And I was like, yeah, but then you guys all wouldn't be here, like I would rather be with more people. But yeah, 2021 is interesting. It's going to be an interesting year.
What do you know? Are there any insights you can give people, just like, not to give away your whole, what you do, but do you have any insights that you could give to someone who's like, are we going to get relief in 2021?
That's a great question, because relief comes not from it stopping. Relief comes in 2021 through innovation. So where we're at with this pandemic and the way society is being, like, we're contracted, we're being asked to stay home, we're not able to see our loved ones. Like, what the heck is going to happen at Christmas time? It's really weird. And so there's restrictions and constrictions, and we're being contracted, and it feels like our freedoms may be being taken away. But as a spiritual person, I'm sure that you've come across many times the law of expansion and contraction, right? And so where Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto, for that matter, have all been in Capricorn, Capricorn is a very contractive sign. Saturn contracts and Jupiter expands. And so with Saturn contracting and with all this contraction that we've had, we're moving into a time of expansion next, because Saturn and Jupiter on December 21st of this year, the winter solstice, they come together in the sky. It's the closest they've been in the sky since the 1600s. And so this is called a conjunction. But it's the first time, well, I'll explain. It's the first time since the 12th century that we are now entering into a time where Saturn and Jupiter come together every 20 years in air signs. And on the 21st of December, it happens in Aquarius. And Aquarius is known for innovation, to be a rebel. Aquarius doesn't follow the rules. Aquarius makes the rules, So we look at, it was happening in Earth, and we had lots of Capricorn energy in Saturn dominant times. And Saturn's always going to be dominant and play a role, but Saturn's no longer going to be in Capricorn, which is authority and everybody follow the rules and make sure you're in integrity, which are very good things and also challenging things. Now Saturn's moving into Aquarius, where it's also at home, but it's saying, okay, we learned the rules, let's break the rules. I'm not saying don't wear your mask and don't follow the rules or whatever. I don't know, do what you need to do there. But as a general thing with the signs, it's like Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius is now masterful. It's like in a position of mastery, and your authority is no longer needing any force, because it's so embodied, this inner authority where, I was in a challenging conversation with somebody who I would say was trying to deceive me about something. And my response was, I answer not to a person at this point. I answer to, and I just pointed up there. I'm like, I answered her or him or God or whatever you want to call it, because it's like, that's the authority that I answer to, you know? And so the more people that are aligned with their inner authority, once we get in with our inner authority, then I think the natural progression is that spiritual authority and living from a higher morale. And so it might sound a little bit idealistic, but the next 200 years where we were material earth signs, now it's going to be ethereal air signs. So moving from the material to the ethereal. And so the relief comes when we actually start to let go of where we were. We let ourselves be that butterfly in the cocoon in that imagined stage where you turn to mush and then, or sorry, that was a caterpillar first, and then come out as the butterfly. And so the innovation and allowing yourself to take a risk and rebel from our old lives, and that's where the relief comes.
See, I'm an earth sign. So to me, I think it's interesting when when the planets are in different signs, you can definitely feel the effect that it has on you if you're a particular sign. And so I think for me, the end of 2020 has been especially difficult. But it's nice to know that that's going to end up changing as, and I think I agree with you. I think we are moving from being more constricted to things are going to be more open. And I'm looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to that. But I think that the way that we look at a lot of things is just going to change. And I think being in quarantine and realizing, hey, there's a lot of things we can do differently, that we, have had things the same way for so many years. And now we're realizing, oh, we don't have to do it that way anymore. So that's actually a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also if people can think innovation, not just in technology or how we use our resources, but innovation of how you think about things, innovation in our perception of reality, even innovation in our relating. I even think the way you and I are doing this right now is kind of indicative of how innovation can happen. Like we're in different countries and here we are joining. And so, yeah, we're stuck at home. I have to stay home, and my husband is our grocery fetcher. And, I would really like to go to the grocery store. I mean, I could, that's just what we've chosen for our family. But to then actually have no boundaries, that we're able to join and do this, like this, yes, sure, we're in our own homes, but we're also more connected than ever through some of these innovations. And so, yeah, I think even though I am not a fan of Yogi Bhajan from Kundalini Yoga, I don't condone his behavior or his work even right now. No offense if you do, it's totally cool. That's just where I stand on it. One thing that he said that I think there is some merit to is when he was creating Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, he said there will be a time in our lifetimes where many people will experience will be deeply challenged in their mental health. I don't know his exact words. I think he would have said something like where many people will think like they're losing their minds or going crazy. And so it's now is the time to make sure that you are doing your mental health practices, so that I think he even gave a stat like 80% of the people are going to think they're losing their minds. Right? I think that's what he said. And I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like I'm of fairly sound mental health. And this year has challenged me in ways that I never imagined possible. I've read about it. I've had students come tell me about their experiences, but, anxiety or panic attacks to the point where if somebody gave me one more piece of news, it would feel like I would have a heart attack, or my husband and I don't know how many times we looked at each other over the course of this year and we're like, are we dreaming? Is this real? Is this actually what's happening? Like actually questioning reality. Am I dreaming? Am I crazy? Is this real? And not just on one topic.
It definitely has cause that. And, I'm a teacher, and I know that, and I can see it with my students, that their mental health has suffered because they don't get to go to school every day and be with their friends and do their normal activities. And so it's tough for kids too, especially right now. And I think that we're seeing the rise of mental health issues. And I mean, I think it's honestly, it's a good thing in the long run, because I think that what's going to happen is it's everyone's going to understand this is an important topic. This
Mhm.
mental health care should be accessible to everyone. And right now it's not.
Yeah.
And I think that it has brought that to the forefront that, oh, yeah, maybe we should be focusing on people's mental health. Maybe we should be giving them resources that they can access free and, or at least low cost, that can help them. Because before, that's why I know, at least in our country, where we've seen, the rise of homelessness or drug use, it's all stems from mental health issues, a big part of that. And so I think that this is at least put a spotlight like, hey, I know at least 10 people now who are in depression, and they've never happened before.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can fake their way through life and their friends don't realize they have depression or anxiety. And it's like everyone is experiencing it now to some degree.
Yeah. And, even just pairing what you're saying with what you do, you're a teacher. I don't know what grade you teach, but like in my vision of the future, we're not having to catch up with mental health stuff. It's just embedded. Like in kindergarten, we breathe. Like we sense our bodies. You never lose that connection. I look at my littlest guy. He's 13 months. And even he's feeling the effects of the pandemic because we stayed home. We've stayed home. So now I went and visited my mom, and I mean, a couple times, but like we're in different parts of the country. And he had social anxiety. Like he could not let go of me. And I was there for 2 weeks. It took 10 days before he would go to anybody else. And, it's reaching everybody in some way, shape, or form. If it's not yourself, it's somebody in your family. And so I think to have it embedded in society, like just, that's one of the things I love about, I think it's in Islam, where they just stop for prayer 5 times a day. And it's embedded in their culture that bell goes and you get down on your knees and you pray. And not saying that we need to do something like that. And I'm not sure that Western culture would conform to anything like that. Western culture wants to be so free and so radicalized and so much in their own authority. But to be able to, in any conversation, say, hey, I just need a minute. Can I have some time to respond with this? And people are getting better at saying that now, I think, because this year, and people are giving more permission for people to take that time, that could be one of the radical ways that we then alter our culture.
I absolutely think that we need to have mindfulness practices embedded within the curriculum of schools. I created a program called Mindfulness Matters. That's just like if you want to call it a workbook that, either schools or parents could buy and use with their kids every day. It's just little mindfulness things that they can do and teach to their kids, so that I think, and of course we've been forced to slow down with the pandemic, but I think the biggest part of our society is it's just, we've always been taught go, 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 and we just act and we say and we do, and we don't think about what we've said or what we've done. Or now it's causing people to have to slow down and realize, okay, I need to be present in my life in every moment.
Yeah.
And it gives kids those tools they need.
Yeah. And not just in our heads, we have to be in our bodies. We have to have that relationship with our bodies, and to take it a step further, in my little vision of a world, it's not just the mindfulness practices. Astrology puts us all working on a similar theme at a similar time. And so When I look at astrology, or at least this year alone, because all of a sudden now I'm working from home constantly, and we did different courses. So I do virtual new moon circles and full moon circles, and then when there's a retrograde, we'll do a course on the retrograde, or there's a big astrological event, we'll do a course on that event, or maybe it's a one day, meetup or whatever it is. And what I found time and time again with the astrology, and even when I was teaching it as a theme in my public yoga class, is that we are all going through similar things at a similar time. And here we are living in a world of enormous division. We are divided on more topics than we even know exist. And astrology is one great unifier, because there's no denying that we're standing on the same earth that's revolving around the same sun, and we're staring at the same moon at night, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it is the same. And it doesn't care about your sex, your gender, your age, your religious orientation, your demographic, like your socioeconomic demographic, like none of it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care about your skin color. It doesn't care about anything. And it doesn't care about your health. It's the same for absolutely everybody. And I shouldn't say it doesn't care. It cares deeply about all of those things. Right? It's like this benevolent guide. And what I noticed this year was that we would build these courses far in advance, just based off what the astrology is, not knowing how then the energy and the community would fill the course itself. And myself and the women that I work with, we would be in our planning meetings as we create it, and then we'd have to have a planning meeting every week, because it's so dynamic, and like how people are showing up is big. It's not light, it's big. And it would be a mixture of like giggling and shock to how accurate it was, even though we wrote it a long time ago. And so if we had, let's say, these themes, you don't even need to call it astrology, even you could call it whatever you want, but like, here's a theme. We're looking now at in a Sagittarius season while we're recording this. Sagittarius season has to do with fun and adventure and laugh, but it also has to do with our spiritual orientation and our desire to seek truth. And it also has to do with the nature of our mind and our belief systems, and how these belief systems shape our reality, and how examining foreign cultures helps us then to see our own belief systems. And, these topics are not small. Like looking at a belief system, or a limiting belief, or a liberating belief as a juxtaposition to the limiting belief. Imagine having a community of people that we all know that we're working on this right now, right? And instead of now, let's say you and I are old friends, and we come together, and you're like, what belief systems have you been hacking? Like belief hacking. What belief hacking are you doing right now? And I could tell you, and you would understand that my previous belief has been blown up by the illumination of the limitation of it. And you would allow me to change, and I would do the same for you. Or if we rewind back into the fall, where it was Mars retrograde, it was full of inflammation, and inflammation covering our own physical bodies, but also our tempers and our frustration, and throwing inflammation and heat into our relations. And I found having this community of people that are following that and understanding that at the same time, when I saw somebody getting a little frustrated, I wouldn't pour gas on their fire. I'd be like, okay, everybody's going through some flare-ups right now, and now it's your turn. And I'm going to let you go through that flare-up, because it's going to burn something off. You're going to burn something off. And when you walk through that fire, you're going to be different on the other side. So I'm going to let you go through that process, and I'm going to meet you on the other side. And when it's my turn and I'm getting a flare up and I'm walking through the fire, you're going to walk me through that fire too. And you're going to meet me on the other side. And so we look at these themes in a community setting. It builds compassion, it builds empathy, it builds a different way of relating to each other. It builds opportunities to recognize each other's growth moment to moment. And so there's a huge opportunity that is written in the stars that we're just not harnessing to the degree that we could be. So my little dream, it's like, okay, what if that was the conversation, or at least the understanding that we shared?
So if somebody wanted to join you for a course or just follow you because they're interested in everything that you're saying, which I'm fascinated by what you've been talking about and can totally relate to it. So if someone wanted to follow you or take your course, how could they do that?
I'm pretty easy to find. So if you can remember Attune to the Moon, that's the website, attunetothemoon.com. And that's the main hub. It's a membership website. There's a free level, there's like cheaper level, and I can give your listeners 50% off that level if they want. So it'd be like $11 a month, and you get access to a ton of different practices in astrology. And then there's like of course, you always got to up level something. So there's one where you can get like distance healing and whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But that would be the easiest, is Attune to the Moon. And then I know a lot of people like hanging out on Instagram. So again, at Attune to the Moon, all one word. And then my name is Jana Roemer, and I'm sure you'll put this in the show notes. So it's Jana_Roemer, and my website's janaroemer.com. And the other place that I like to hang out in the ethers in the internet world is this little free app called Insight Timer. And Insight Timer is a free meditation app. A lot of people know about it. If you don't, you should definitely check it out. I have been on there for quite a few years. I've got Yoga Nidras on there, as well as a course, a 10-day course to help you overcome obsessive thinking. But really, it's just like a collection of all my favorite practices that help me stay sane. And then those journeys, they're not actually part of the membership, but if you are a member, back to Attune to the Moon, I jumped there for a second, they are discounted. You get discount if you're a member, but anybody can do them. So
Awesome. And I know that you're going to pass along all this information to me. So I will put it in the show notes, especially that discount, which is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that for my listeners.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So if you could leave my listeners today with one piece of advice or a little golden nugget of wisdom, what would that be?
I knew this question was coming, but I didn't really put a lot of thought into it because I like to just see what comes up in the moment. I think if there was a parting thought, it would be that things are not what they seem. Things are not what they seem. Our human condition is one of limitation. And the more you can connect to your soul, or the more you can connect to the invisible world and develop and nurture trust that the universe has got your back, the more you'll be able to see how magical it is. So, things are not what they seem. Sometimes the biggest pain is the biggest gift.
I've been pulling that card actually for myself recently, was that what may seem like a problem is actually an answer to your prayers. And you will see that as everything is unfolding in divine timing, your prayers are being answered. So I really do believe that. I believe that you have to go through the painful part to get to the blessing sometimes, because we're actually just getting rid of, as you said, burning off those limiting beliefs or burning off the conditions that have been placed on us in order to learn how to be more open and free. So I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. This is so much fun.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. What a gift to be able to come and chat and share. And yeah, thank you.
Yes, and Nala loved it too, as she put her little input in there, my golden doodle, who's a little hyper. And if she were a child, she would be in her teen years, the terrible teens. We love Nala. She's interrupted my Facebook lives before to try to help me pull cards for people. So she's a mess. But thank you so much for being here with us today. And I will have all of your information out there. And I want to thank all of you who are out there listening to us today. Thank you for being here with us. As always, if you like this podcast, please subscribe. Please leave a positive review from wherever you're listening and share it with anyone you think might benefit. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. I go live Mondays at 6:30 Central on Facebook, where I do a free card reading. And if you show up for the live, I will pull a card especially for you. I also have free guided meditations on my YouTube channel. If you want to work with me, you can go to my website, melissaoatman.com. There you will see all of the services I offer, and you can book a service directly from my website. All of my sessions are done online through Zoom, so you never have to leave the comfort of your own home. Thank you so much. I hope that you guys have a beautiful day from wherever you're listening. I am sending you so much love and light, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye, guys.